Hey there. I wanted to share with you one of the many reasons that I have found some kids struggle with comprehension, even if they have really strong decoding skills. And one of the things that is a major player in the struggle with comprehension, if you've checked for strong decoding skills, if you checked for a decent vocabulary level knowledge, it really comes down to executive functioning and the challenges that kind of occur when students are reading text. If you look, ADHD can impact executive functioning. Not all people who struggle with executive functioning have ADHD, but they kind of like coincide really strongly with one another. So, executive functions that are impaired, especially for people to be on the lookout for if they do have a diagnosis of ADHD, is that working memory, the verbal and nonverbal working memory. They really struggle with that internal dialogue and self talk, their time awareness and future planning, self regulation in the moment, and their ability to apply knowledge across contexts. I want to specifically talk to you guys about the working memory piece, but these are all of the different executive functions that can be affected by a weak profile in executive functioning. So, the weak working memory is a huge deal in all aspects across school. It is something that people with ADHD, people with executive functioning really struggle with. They have a hard time holding in their mind information. So, if a teacher gives directions, take out your social studies book and open up to page 72, the student might take out the social studies book but forget what page number, or they might not, first of all, might not be attending to that instruction at all, but they might have heard it, but they might have focused on the 72 and not gotten the correct textbook or item out that they should turn to. So that weak working memory is something that teachers can really kind of accommodate for if you write down on the board, or if you put it on your document camera on a post-it note what page should be everybody should be on and what book they should be on. It's just a nice easy way to offset that working memory. When it comes to reading, though, it is really hard to kind of keep into account all of the information that you kind of need, especially as the text gets more complex. So good readers do a lot of these like invisible reading processes without like announcing it, without making it clear. So teachers really need to point this out to the kids who really struggle, who are not the best readers in the class. If a student has weak executive functioning skills, they're going to really struggle tracking the coded language that authors use when they are writing a story. So the characters in the story, especially if we have a more complex story where maybe we have the main character who has an uncle, or the main character who has a neighbor who is a friend but isn't the antagonist, and they have a little bit of trouble. Students who struggle with executive functioning skills probably have a hard time tracking those characters, especially if they don't attend 100% of the time to the text and all of a sudden George's name turns to he. Well, that student might really struggle to know who he is if there's 17 other he's that it could possibly be in the story. So I really want you to keep an eye out for pronouns, nicknames, especially multiple different nicknames for the same character. Just give your students a quick reminder of who that nickname belongs to or who that he is. So this really goes down to pronouns. Pronouns are a way that authors can code the words so that they don't just keep saying, Wilma did this, Wilma did that, Wilma went to the store, Wilma, Wilma, Wilma. It gets kind of tiring when you read Wilma all the time. So the author might change it to she did this, or give Wilma a nickname, or use Mrs. So-and-so if Wilma is married. And we need to keep it in our mind that Wilma has six different nicknames or coded words to refer to her in the story that is not just Wilma. So if you look at this passage here, it is a story about a boy named Marcus and his friend Jake, and they are playing basketball. I want you to keep track of all of the pronouns that exist in this passage. So it says Marcus walked into the gym early and helped pick up a basketball right away. When Jake arrived a few minutes later, he saw Marcus practicing and decided to join him. The coach noticed them and told Jake that he wanted him to help Marcus warm up. As they practiced, Jake passed the ball to him, and and Marcus thanked him for the assist. Later, the coach called Marcus over and reminded him that he needed to focus during the game. Jake listened nearby and told him that he would support him if he needed help. By the end of practice, Marcus felt more confident because he knew Jake was on his side. This is a pretty good sample of a fifth grade reading passage and all of the different he's, hims, theys, thems that is going on that can make it really hard to create a mental picture of what is actually going on in the text. So my suggestion for you when you're working with students who struggle with comprehension, really easily, you can just kind of say who the he is when it's like crucial, important information. If you want to do a small guided reading group lesson on this, if you print out passages and just track the characters, color code them. So if we see all of the different pronouns in here, we have a couple of he's, we have a couple of hims, we have a they, him, and what we can do then is we have three characters in this passage. We have Marcus, Jake, and the coach. What we can do is color code the names and pronouns for practice. Now, I wouldn't say do this every single time you read anything ever, but it is a good way to make students more aware that when there is a sentence with he went to the gym, that in this passage, he could be Marcus, he could be Jake, or he could be the coach. So what we can do is color code all the pronouns for Marcus. So now we have Marcus walked into the gym early and he, Marcus, picked up a basketball right away. When Jake arrived a few minutes later, he saw Marcus practicing and decided to join him. The coach noticed them and told Jake that he wanted him to help Marcus. So anytime we are referring to Marcus, we have just underlined it in blue. Then we can code Jake's pronouns in green, and all of a sudden visually we have a much easier tracking system of who is the he, who is the him, and then both of them are included in them. And then finally, we can highlight the coach in purple, who's not referred to a whole lot, but this just makes the story pop a little bit more where we can understand this information a little bit better. So we have Marcus walked into the gym early and he picked up a basketball right away. When Jake arrived a few minutes later, he, Jake, saw Marcus practicing and decided to join him, Marcus. The coach, who we have in purple, noticed them, Marcus and Jake, and told Jake that he, the coach, wanted him, Jake, to help Marcus. Really breaking that down can help students get a better idea of what they are reading. So, taking the time to make those invisible moving parts visible when you can is really helpful in aiding the comprehension of the passage of a story. If you're doing a read aloud, if you're doing a novel study, really just kind of breaking down and giving kids those kind of quick who is being talked about here. Don't make it a quiz time. Don't just like create a worksheet where they have to fill it in, but directly, explicitly tell them who the different pronouns belong to and have them practice it over time, and that will really help strengthen their understanding of the story. So, to refresh, to support the weak working memory, to support those weak executive functioning skills, always summarize the text just to recap, because some of these kids aren't always paying attention 100% of the time. And then just help them be aware of like who's actually in the room in a certain scene, especially like in a really important scene. If you're reading Harry Potter, there could be like 15 different people that are going on in that passage. So just help your students, like when they're creating a mental picture, being on guard, being aware of who could be in the room, who could be doing the action. And then this video just went over how to help make those pronouns visible. When you're doing a read aloud, this does not have to have a ton of time spent on it, but just directly saying, oh, I had a little trouble with this unclear paragraph, let's reread it. And then you can kind of break down if there was any unclear pronoun or nickname usage. And then going back to the basics, making sure your characters have an understanding of who the protagonist is in the story, who the antagonist is. Is there anybody who's acting in kind of a suspicious way, but we just need to be aware of it? And then the setting, knowing the different genre and setting really helps set those expectations for the various executive functioning skills that go into reading. If you want to read more, I have a couple of articles written on my blog, Lisa Teaches Reading. I do have some reading supports at my Teachers Pay Teachers store. You can certainly join my YouTube channel. And then a lot of this information came from Kelly Cartwright. She has a fantastic fantastic book. It is dense though. But she really goes deeply into executive skills and how that's impacted in reading comprehension. If you get a chance to see any of her webinars, or if you get to see her in person, she has some really amazing stuff. And then, of course, learning more about executive functioning in general. I love, love, love the Peg Dawson, Richard Gore, Smart But Scattered series. It really hits home. It's a great resource to suggest to other families or parents. If you have a kid who struggles with executive functioning, get that book now. Your library probably has it. You could ask them for it, or you could just order it on Amazon. I'll include the links below. But just really building up an awareness of what executive functions are. And if you have a kiddo who is disorganized or struggles with like time management, so learning about some of those lesser known things like that weaker working memory can really offload just some general understanding and create some more supports in areas that they might struggle. So go ahead and check those out. Thanks for taking the time to watch this, and then comment below if you find that this has been helpful or if you have any strategies that you use yourself.